Hey, Pre-World History, Mr. Sambo again. In this video, we're going to be talking about post-classical China, and we're specifically going to be focusing on the Song Dynasty. So here are a list picking up with the Song. Right before the Song was the Tang Dynasty, and then the Song, and then we move closer to modern times. So for the purpose of the AP course, the Song Dynasty is really kind of the focus in this post-classical period, or one of the big focuses. So we're going to focus on the Song Dynasty, and at any point, you could pause. There's a lot of words, a lot of great information on some of these slides from freemanpedia.com. But I'm going to kind of summarize, so at any point you could pause and read in detail some of the information. So there are a lot of dynasties in China's history. So there is a dynasty song that you would sing to the tune of Frere Jacques to help you remember the order of the dynasties, right? And so it'd be Shang Chu Qin Han, Shang Chu Qin Han, Su Tang Song, Yanmeng Ming King Republic, Yanmeng King Republic, Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping. Right, so I know, I got some vocal cords. I know, guys. But right, so again, one, you think of that tune might help you kind of remember the order they go in. But two, you could take a look, notice the order. Again, right, kind of the important thing is having that general idea of knowing in what order do these dynasties go. It's not the end of the world if you can't remember the exact years they start and end, but if you could go, oh yeah, I know it was the Tang, and then after the Tang it was the Song, right? And that thing, then that's the big idea, is knowing kind of where they came in order of each other. So the reunification of China. So the Sui dynasty was followed by the Tang dynasty, and then the Song dynasty. And again, the Tang and the Song are kind of what we focus on in this beginning part of the course. And so both of these dynasties are going to use the same structure. They're going to have a centralized government. They're going to break their government into different departments that kind of specialize in these different things: finance, the army, public works, etc. And they're going to revive the Confucian-based exam system. So they're going to revive this idea of these Confucian-based exams. Okay, so to give kind of a picture of the territory that we're talking about, right? So for the Tang and the Song dynasty, right? So you have the Tang dynasty in the lower right-hand corner, right? You could see this massive area that they controlled in roughly the 8th century. And then in the bigger image, you could see the Song dynasty. You could also see kind of where the Great Walls overlaid the Grand Canal, and you could see that territory that they control. Okay, so the Tang dynasty, right? And again, lots of great information on this slide. I'm going to kind of summarize. So they are going to kind of reunify China after the fall of the Sui dynasty, and things they are going to accomplish: woodblock printing, gunpowder, banknotes, right? Different things. So woodblock printing and gunpowder are going to be huge for the impact of, not just, history in China, but history eventually all over Eurasia and the world. So some of the accomplishments by the Tang are pretty great. The Sui dynasty is going to fall in part because they are going to attempt to do some great things, like they build the Grand Canal, the cost of the Great Wall, the cost of the Grand Canal. These things are going to be detrimental, and although they're going to benefit China and future dynasties having these things, for the Sui themselves, they were catastrophic in the cost. And then again, the rise of the Tang dynasty is going to bring about this golden age in Chinese history. Okay, then after the Tang come the Song. Okay, and the Song dynasty kind of lives in two parts, in the northern Song, the southern Song. Okay, and so what's going to happen is, the Song dynasty is going to lose a large amount of territory, as their time goes on. However, they are still going to control a huge percentage of the Chinese population at the time. So eventually, right, the Northern Song, eventually they're going to be invaded. They're going to be referenced furthermore as the Southern Song dynasty, and so they have lost great territory. Their capital is going to move from, Hangzhou in the south is going to be their capital. But again, the Song dynasty is going to work with movable type. They're going to start using gunpowder in war. They come up with this concept of a flamethrower, right? Not necessarily the modern flamethrower that we see in World War II and such, but those initial ideas of a flamethrower. And then paper money, and paper money is going to be huge concept, this idea of paper money. So that's going to be a big impact that the Song dynasty has. Okay, so the Northern Song and the Southern Song, right? So the Northern Song and the Southern Song. Okay, here we go. So the Northern Song, right? This brings about that end of the period, that 5 dynasties period, where all these different dynasties are trying to take power and control, back to back to back. They're going to build this capital city, Kaifeng, which, remember, we did our project on, the Song Dynasty Scroll project, believed recreation of the city of Kaifeng. So they're going to work with that. Eventually, they'll be invaded and they'll have to retreat, and that's when they're going to move their capital to Hangzhou in the south. And right, that invasion in the north is not the end of the Song dynasty, because they're going to continue their rule in southern China. And so again, most of China's population at the time is in southern China. And so some things that the Song dynasty is going to do after that, they're going to build China's first navy. They're going to eventually put a stop to the invaders, and eventually the Mongols will then invade and put an end to the Song dynasty. Okay. So the economy for China. Okay, so again, they have history's first paper money, right? This is going to be a revolutionary idea, this idea of paper money. It did not fully replace coins, right? They use coins as well. This paper money is going to come about in the late 900s. Okay, and it is going to be right, issued by the government, right, in our Tang dynasty, so right before the Song, the Tang dynasty. And this is going to be, this huge innovation, going from coins and things to, hey, here's this paper and it has value. They are going to use coal for fuel. They're going to start using coal for fuel. They're going to, the Song dynasty is going to write down this formula for gunpowder and how to use it. It's going to be the first type of movable type. So the Tang dynasty is going to come up with these woodblock printing, which is basically like one big stamp. Right? And then the Song dynasty is going to come up with movable print. So still like stamps, but for, say, different words. So now, right, in the Tang dynasty, you write one letter, boom, here's the stamp for that letter. And now I can only stamp that letter. Right? This movable print is going to be these different blocks that make up different words and things. And so then you can move them around, right? And boom, I wrote that letter. Now I want to write another letter. I can use my same blocks, rearrange them to make the different words and things, and then stamp that, right? So print is going to come about in China. Merchants are going to rise a little bit in power. Okay? Confucianism is going to branch out and get a new sect, Neo-Confucianism, right? So that's going to be developed in the Tang dynasty, right? And so Neo-Confucianism is a sect, or kind of a new religion that's going to branch off from Confucianism. So they are going to have kind of some core beliefs. You can see in the middle, right? People are good, people improve through self-cultivation, use the Confucianism exam system, and things like that. And as you notice on the outside, there's going to be some differences between them. Foot binding is going to start at the very end of the Tang dynasty and thrive throughout the Song dynasty. And so we could see some images here. And so what foot binding is it is literally binding feet. So, wrapping them very, very tightly to keep a woman's foot from growing properly, right? Growing out normally like a normal foot would. The binding is going to cause the bones as they try to grow to bend into different shapes, as you can see here, and it's going to make the foot look extremely tiny. And so um, what's going to happen is this is going to be a cultural kind of movement, and so this is going to be seen as a thing of beauty in China's culture. The smaller your foot, the more the more beautiful the woman is considered to be, right? And so this is going to predominantly be kind of an upper class cultural movement, although it is going to you spread further, but it's predominantly going to be foot binding is going to stay with kind of the more elite upper class women. And so as you could see, right, sometimes bones would need to be broken and rebroken. And so it was extremely painful, right? Once your foot grows like this, it's difficult to move around and to walk, which is part of why it's going to be an elite thing, right? Because, non-elite women, right, had to move around, had to work in the fields, had to work in the markets, had to do these things. They couldn't afford, to have their feet crunched, to where they could not walk around. Um, so the golden age of China is going to focus on the arts and literature. This Neo-Confucianism is going to come about, and it's going to revive Confucianism. It's going to have Buddhist and Taoist elements, so it has different things. As you can see in some of the images, right, these ceramic porcelain works that are famous from China. China's going to have an economic revolution, right? They're going to make major advancements in agriculture. The most important advancement in agriculture is going to be champa rice, which is this fast growing rice. It's also very drought resistant, and it's going to come from modern day Vietnam. And so Chinese rice at this time grew very slowly, and they could not harvest a lot of it quickly. But when they discover champa rice and they get this champa rice from the modern day Vietnam area, they're going to realize, right, hey, this rice grows a lot faster. So we could grow and harvest multiple harvests in a year as compared to, the couple harvests we can with our rice. And so now with using, right, this fast growing rice and growing way more food, you can now feed more people. And the result of using this champa rice is going to create a rapid population growth. And so estimates say that, the population is going to grow up to 120 million people by 1200. And a huge part is due to this, realization of this champa rice. China is going to become more urbanized. Many people are going to begin moving to cities. There's going to be a bunch of cities all over China that have very large populations. And the capital of the Song Dynasty, Hangzhou, is going to estimates up to having over 1 million people at a time. Okay, so their industrial production, the iron industry is going to boom. They're going to begin making suits of armor, arrows, tools, bells for Buddhist monasteries, etc. Again, like I mentioned earlier, these innovations, right, woodblock and movable type, which will eventually lead to some of the first printed books and things. They create these junks and these bigger ships. They work on the compass. They discover gunpowder and its uses for gunpowder. Right, women in the Song Dynasty are going to kind of take a little bit of a regression. So prior to the Song Dynasty, Chinese women, although it was a patriarchal society, they kind of enjoyed some freedoms. With the Song Dynasty, however, and this revitalization of Confucianism, right? Confucianism has this, again, those beliefs, right? Relationships. And so the woman is subordinate to the man in these Confucianist relationships. And so women are going to kind of get notched down a little bit, and these kind of patriarchal ideas are going to return. Again, all right, that's kind of part of where kind of foot binding comes in. So foot binding, I mentioned it earlier, it became this sign of beauty. It also keeps women in the home. It becomes a sign of eliteness. But it's going to start young, right? As you have to do this when your foot is growing, and so girls anywhere from ages 4 to 7 would start by having their feet bound, right? And as their foot would grow, then the bind would keep it small, and as you could see, right, feet would get these high arches, right, and these bones would break, right? And the goal of this is to make the feet as small and delicate as possible, because again, it became known as a sign of beauty in Song Dynasty culture. And so here we have some images of women's feet that were bound. As you could see, right, their arch, right, their bones have been broken to create that high arch, but it makes the whole of their foot look tiny. Again, it would be very difficult to move around like this, which is why it became a part of, elite culture. So here you have, right, a normal grown foot, goes out straight, has a little bit of an arch. Here you have a bound foot. You could see how the bones, right, have been forced to grow very compact, and so on. Women are going to begin working. And so, China's economy is going to become more commercial. Factories and little workshops and things are going to start up, which means things are going to be less and less made in the home. And so, uh, women, right, are going to lose some of these jobs, right? Women typically would make things in the home, and now that these things are going out to factories and being formalized and such, these factories are going to be ran by men, and then it's now going to be men that are filling those jobs outside of the home, because again, women were seen as at this time in history as working in the home, doing home-related duties. So when clothes and textiles and things were being made in the home, that was something they did. Now that it's being commercialized and moved into factories, that's going to be something that men are going to take over. So, now that women are being replaced in this industry, what do? Right? They operate restaurants, they sell food, they're maids and cooks, they're concubines, and so on. Positive trends for women, their property rights are going to be expanded. So they're going to be able to control their own dowries, which again, a dowry is a bride price, right? A price that the bride is, or the bride's family typically is paid for their marriage to, a different family's son. But now they're going to control their own dowries, meaning that dowry is not being paid to her father or her family, it's being paid to her. She's going to be able to inherit family property. So, now women can inherit property. They're going to be, this promotion of education for women. And although there is going to be this promotion of education for women, it's not out of the kindness of heart, like, hey, women need an education. It's more so like, hey, women are raising our sons. And so therefore our women need to be educated so they could better raise our sons and our future men, kind of thing. So that's the reason, right? So although it is, right, positive, it's not positive out of the light of, hey, women need education. It's positive out of the light of, you're raising our sons. The sons need better education so they could, provide for China in the future, and so forth. China and nomads. Okay, so nomads, right, are pastoral and semi-agricultural people on the northern steppe. And so, right, nomadic people, they don't stay in one place. They roam around a region. They move with their animals and their herd, etc. But there's going to be this relationship between nomads and Chinese dynasties. And a big part of that relationship, along with fighting, is going to be trade, right? They're going to need to trade with each other and things. Okay. So from the nomads' point of view, right, they thought the Chinese were a threat, right? They built this great wall to keep them out of a certain area. Their military was directed towards them. they thought that they made trading more difficult, right? The Chinese made trading much more difficult than it needed to be, right? And in reality, these Chinese dynasties needed the nomads, right? They needed horses for their military, which they traded or bought from nomads. They needed other things like furs, right, that they traded or bought from the nomads. It was a huge part of the Silk Road network, right? Like nomads roamed over different parts of the Silk Road trade, right? So they needed to cooperate or, with these nomads or have nomads help protect different areas of the Silk Road and things like that. From China's point of view, right, they viewed the nomads as barbaric, right? Oh, these people that don't have a home and they just roam from place to place, right? They thought they themselves, the Chinese, were so sophisticated and civilized, right? They felt superior to all other people, not just nomads, right? But the Chinese as a whole, or in this time period, they view their culture and things as superior. And so this is going to result in something called the tribute system. Okay? And what the tribute system is, there's kind of two things. We're going to say what it is in theory and say how it actually played out, and that's kind of going to wrap up where we're at. Okay, so the tribute system was this idea that people would acknowledge, foreigners would acknowledge that the Chinese were superior to them, right? So foreigners would have to go to the Chinese court, right, and visit the emperor, see somebody in power, and they would have to, right, give tribute, give a gift to the emperor, to the Chinese dynasty, in a way of showing, like, a special gift. Hey, this is for something that is unique and the emperor might like. And also, right, it was this idea that we're acknowledging that we are not as great as you, kind of thing. And in return, right, the Chinese emperor would grant them permission to stay and trade, or would also give a gift in exchange. Right? So if you were a foreigner, you had to show up to this emperor, you had to pay tribute, give them some kind of gift, and it had to be a good gift. It couldn't just be anything. It had to be something that the emperor hadn't seen before, right? Rarely gets, something like that, because in return for that great gift, right, you're going to be allowed to stay and trade in China, or you're going to be provided with safe passage or a gift in exchange, right? So there's kind of a lot going on here. Okay, that's in theory. Okay, in reality, though, China's dealing with all these nomadic empires that have powerful militaries, right? These nomads that they're trying to keep out, and they keep invading. So it's really, in reality, it's kind of backwards. And it's actually China that's kind of paying the tribute to all these nomadic peoples. Okay, and they are, right, giving the nomads these different gifts, and in return, the nomads are agreeing to not invade or attack China. Right. So in theory, the idea was, these nomads and these different foreigners would pay the Chinese, hey, here's these gifts, and now we could stay and do whatever. And in reality, it's going to play out where kind of China, these Chinese dynasties are paying the nomads to, like, hey, get out of here. Like, here's this, now go away. Or, hey, here's this, now, don't attack this village for a while, kind of thing. And that's kind of the reality of how it's going to play out. So this PowerPoint is a combination of some different things, and that early part is, like I mentioned earlier, from, Ben, from freemanpedia.com. So thanks again for that, and using that and providing all this great factual information for this lecture. And I hope you guys learned something.